I want to get into some basketball, and James Harden had his little press conference with the 76ers being introduced there. This is his second time being introduced in 2.5 years. One time with the Brooklyn Nets where everybody thought he was going to finish his career there, and then he pushed his way out as quick as he showed up there, maybe because Kevin Durant didn't pick him on his All-Star team. It doesn't make any sense. And James Harden wasn't even going to be playing in the All-Star game because of injury. A lot of people think that he was hurt by it. Now, I did also hear that Kevin Durant and James Harden really haven't been speaking a lot for the past 6 months. So I don't know if it was the Kyrie Irving thing. I don't know if it's Kevin Durant, but he just didn't want to be there. And Ben Simmons obviously didn't want to be with the 76ers, so it was a match made in heaven. It's so funny. Eric Martini wrote to me the other day telling me, you see, I told you, even without the best players on the team, this made the Nets better with Seth Curry and obviously Andre Drummond.
Well, on 2 games?
First of all, 2 games. They beat the Knicks and they lost against the Wizards. A Wizards team that if the playoffs were to begin right now, they're not even in the playoffs. And they didn't just lose, they got their butts whipped. It's so funny. He says, I told you they're not a championship team, but this is going to make them better. It didn't make them better. James Harden is a better player than Ben Simmons, okay? It's a fact. It's not even close. And you want to add Seth Curry? Yeah, Seth Curry's a good player. He's a nice player. He's not Steph. He's a good shooter, not a great shooter. He's a better defensive player than his brother, no question.
Not by much, though.
But not by much. So what makes him a great fit with the Nets? Now, it gives you automatic offense off the bench. It does. When Kevin Durant comes back and Kyrie Irving plays and Ben Simmons comes back, is Seth Curry going to score a lot of points? He's going to give you 7-8 points. He's not going to give you what you think you're going to get out of him. And Andre Drummond, he looked good against the Knicks. And then he was like blah against the Wizards. Andre Drummond, he was at one point one of the top 3, top 4 centers in the league. He's a great rebounder. That's it. He can't shoot a free throw. He gets to the line a lot, but he can't shoot a free throw. And he's not a good shooter. What is the benefit of having Andre Drummond?
Maybe the Nets should just hire Rick Barry as an assistant coach to have Ben Simmons and Andre Drummond shoot underhand free throws.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's so funny when you listen to different people talk about this trade and who won and who lost. And honestly, it doesn't really matter because all in all, the 76ers are going to be a better team with James Harden. The 76ers are beating good teams. They beat Milwaukee the other day without James Harden and without Seth Curry and without Andre Drummond. And Joel Embiid's on a whole nother level right now. He's playing on a whole nother level. You bring in James Harden, who's going to give you between 22 and 25 points a game, and he's going to give you rebounding, and he's going to give you passing. Who do you think is going to win on this trade? Because they've been playing without Ben Simmons all year. And Seth Curry was giving you 14, 15 points a game on the 76ers. So you're getting 10 more points with James Harden. You're getting probably about 7, 8 more assists with James Harden. And you're getting about 8 more rebounds with James Harden. So who's going to win on this trade? Come on, guys. I'm not taking shots at the Brooklyn Nets. I'm a Knicks fan, yes. But I'm speaking fact here. Why is everybody sitting here and saying, well, the Knicks won this trade? Ooh.
I was hearing Nets in a landslide, too, from
It's
some
ridiculous.
people on Twitter. I think the Sixers, I'm not going to say they won in a landslide, but I'll say they won the trade.
They definitely won the trade. Not a landslide. You don't know what the landslide's going to be until James Harden and Ben Simmons comes back.
Well, yeah. Also, I like Seth Curry off the bench. I think he's played very well.
Yes,
and he's also played well in the playoffs, too, with Portland. He played well in the playoffs with the Mavericks, even though they didn't have a lot of great teams there. And the Nets might benefit off of that kind of thing, considering what they had off the bench last year when Joe Harris was shooting up bricks and Landry Shamet and other guys like that were struggling to them. So maybe that's a little bit of an advantage for them. And Andre Drummond is a good rebounder, which they do need. But you're right, he definitely has regressed as an overall big man for what he was 4 or 5 years ago. From the Sixers standpoint, you do lose Drummond as a little bit of an insurance policy if Embiid gets hurt. And he has done that a lot in the playoffs.
It is so ridiculous. Logically, if you look at numbers and you look at both teams and you look at where the Nets are and where the 76ers are, the Nets are barely in a playoff spot right now. And the 76ers right now, they're making the playoffs as a 4th seed without Ben Simmons, without Seth Curry, without James Harden right now. They're winning. They're beating good teams, beating the Milwaukee Bucks. What are they, a 2nd seed right now?
Milwaukee is the number 5 seed right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But they're all tied on percentage points. Philly, Cleveland, and Milwaukee, 3, 4, 5. They're all technically 2.5 games back. So
from 1 to 5, they're very close to one another.
Right.
Miami's what, 3 games ahead of all of them?
Miami and Chicago are tied for 1 and 2 at 38-21, and the other three teams that I just mentioned are 2.5 games back, and then the Celtics are 6 at 4.5 back.
I can't believe how well the Celtics have just started to play. They traded away a bunch of players, and they're playing better basketball, too. And they haven't gotten any better. They've gotten worse. Figure that one out. Maybe they're figuring out the offense now with the new coach, and Tatum's actually playing better now. So that's what you expected, Tatum and Jaylen Brown to be special. But again, one of those guys are going to have to go if they go after Bradley Beal, because there's no way Bradley Beal is just going to be given away. And I listen to Jeff all the time. What are they going to trade for Bradley Beal? He's still under contract. I think he's under 2-year contract right now. So how are they going to get Bradley Beal and not trade Jaylen Brown or Tatum? They're going to have to trade one or the other. So I don't know how you think it benefits if they went after Bradley Beal. As far as the All-Star break is concerned and the New York Knicks is, they definitely are trade partners, okay? They need to trade. If you could trade Julius Randle, trade him in the offseason, because obviously they couldn't trade him at the trade deadline on Julius Randle because no team was offering him what they wanted for a Julius Randle. Now, Julius Randle is having an offseason. Maybe this is a thought in their mind to say, you know what, we'll wait until the offseason and see what is the best offer that we can get for him. I do not see Julius Randle a long player here with the Knicks, especially when Tom Thibodeau is on the hot seat now. Crazy to say that, where he was coach of the year last year, and now all of a sudden this year, he's on the hot seat. Knicks management is not happy with Tom Thibodeau in where this team is just completely transitioned to. He's not playing the young players. That's another reason why Worldwide West and Rose are not happy about. They bring in these young players. You don't see enough of Obi Toppin. You don't see enough of Emmanuel Quickly. You don't see enough of Grimes. You don't see enough of McBride. You don't see enough of any of these guys. And they're getting restless right now, and they're playing these older players like Randall, and when Rose comes back, he's going to play more minutes. And Kemba Walker, what's Kemba Walker done for the Knicks this year? Taj Gibson. This is a young team playing a bunch of veterans that are a bunch of washed-up players. So I think that moving forward after the All-Star break, the Knicks are going to have to decide who they are, where they want to position themselves in this lottery, because really on the back end of the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, especially in the Western Conference right now, the Knicks are like 5-6 games ahead of a lot of these teams that are really bad. Obviously, we don't know where the Knicks, they could be the 8th or 9th worst team and still win the lottery. We've seen this.
Yeah, I think Memphis, when they got John Moran, I think they went from 7-2 or something like that. So it's happened.
I would rather see the Knicks lose more games where it benefits them a little bit more, to give them more balls to get the opportunity to draft in the top 5, top 4, because that's where they want to draft. This is a pretty good draft, a top-end type of draft, and they can get themselves a really nice player to fit in with R.J. Barrett and some of the young players moving forward, and maybe a star, something that they've been desperately waiting to have.
When it comes to the trade deadline, they definitely were looking at certain point guards or other young big men that really just weren't tradable. We were talking many off seasons with Karl Anthony Towns. He could be rumored to go to the Knicks with all the Kentucky connections, and the Timberwolves got good this year. Now they're a 7 seed, and they're not going to trade him now. Probably.
Not now, but until the
maybe
offseason.
In the offseason. Yeah, we'll see on that.
I can see it.
And then the other one that was rumored a couple of weeks ago was De'Aaron Fox, but then they trade their other 2 backcourt players to the Pacers for whatever reason, and so that kind of means they were committed to sticking with De'Aaron Fox. So
just think about it, how bad Indiana has been all season long and how bad they are right now and how good they're going to be going into the offseason, because they're still a lottery team, a draft lottery team with all the young players that they have. They have a bunch of trade chips that they could trade away in the offseason, and they could possibly win the draft and get the number 1 pick. Who's better than them?
A lot of nice young pieces there for sure, and a great coach, great defensive coach in Rick Carlisle. So the Knicks just really, there wasn't a scenario out there for them to do that. And the way Randle has played this year, where he's been an isolation player that hasn't worked well with these young players, a lot of these young teams that have a lot of depth probably don't want to risk that kind of thing in terms of a culture change. A team like Memphis that has a lot of good depth, young players off the bench. A team like the Suns in the West, in the Eastern Conference, Cleveland, Chicago, teams that have all these young players are not going to want to take that kind of chance. In terms of Thibodeau, it's definitely not going to be as awkward as Dwayne Casey winning Coach of the Year after he got fired, but still very big extreme going from Coach of the Year to now on the hot seat all of a sudden. I like Thibodeau. I wouldn't fire him, but in terms of his adjustment, he has to be able to adjust to play these young players more, realize the bench is playing well, which is something that I mentioned a month ago. You don't have to rotate everybody out. Change the starting lineup. 2 gut players once in a while. Try something new. And I don't think he ever really adjusted to that. And eventually his stubbornness has taken over to the point where they never evolved as a team. The Knicks are now blowing all these big leads. You were saying, they blew 4 25-point leads or whatever it was. One against the Thunder, this week against the Nets. It's not a good look for a guy that prides himself on defense and prides himself on finishing games, which the Knicks did a lot last year, and they haven't been doing this year.